Hey everyone, Genome here, coming at you with the next episode of Was It Good? Well, in continuing on with my hack and or slash series, I am to the third rung in this very tall ladder that is Friday the 13th. Yes, I'm talking about none other than Friday the 13th Part 3, the infamous movie shot entirely in 3D. Ooh, makes me want to do things like this. Or like the movie does, things like this. You get the point. This movie, once again directed by Steve Miner, which, as we'll see later on in my dissertation, is, I believe, a very good thing. He's one of the better things, actually, that's happened to this series. So, yes, 3D came ushering back in the early 80s. Just all early 80s, really, with a slew, well, actually just a few, of 3D movies. Kind of like reminiscent of, what, 8 or 9 years ago here, but I digress. Yeah, I want to say this was the first, but it could have been Jaws 3D. I saw Jaws 3D in the theater, and boy, it was bad. But, I was, what, 6, so to me it was kind of scary, but it's just bad. This movie was shot entirely in 3D, which was quite an undertaking, actually, because, it's basically rediscovered technology. And it presented quite a challenge to the director and the cinematographer and all that, because you had to kind of make up on the fly what was going to work. For instance, apparently 3D filming takes an obscene amount of lighting to get right. So it's pretty hard to balance a horror movie when it's overly lit, So, yeah, there's a lot more daytime shots than probably is normal in a horror movie, at least for this type. Throughout the movie, and even the darkened scenes are actually pretty lit. Once again, I think it just has to do with the need for lots of light for the 3D. So, hey, who knows? But it came off all right. So, Friday the 13th Part 3 continues directly, and I mean directly, after the second one ends. As you can see here, the killing blow in the first movie, as alluded to in the final scene, wasn't the killing blow. Well, now what's interesting about this scene is it kind of retcons a little bit the end sequence of the second film, where Jason is shown to have a machete actually lodged still in his shoulder when he jumps through the window. On his left side. And in this shot, in 3, it shows him pulling it out the machete before he even leaves his cabin. So either a continuity error, or maybe they are trying to retcon the second one a bit, the dream or real sequence, who knows what it is. I don't know. Let's not dig into it too deep, alright? But anyway, yeah, there it is. So he's back. And what better way to usher in the return of a malevolent, very serious and dark serial killer than, well, let's just say, mood-inducing introduction music. Yeah, those funky beats aside, and like names and all that, and titles that will no doubt jump out of the screen at you in all their 3D splendor. Yeah, that's the real mood setter for this movie. I mean, luckily that doesn't prevail throughout this movie. It turns into your very standard Friday the 13th movie fairly quickly, but that opening music is a little jarring. It's a little different. So we start out in this movie. Jason apparently needs new clothes for some reason. I guess since his arm is technically should be dangling a bit. I don't know, because he got cut through and through to the shoulder about a foot down, so. You'd think he'd be hanging off worse than it was, but maybe he's already regenerating, I don't know. But apparently it ruined his overalls, so The very first shots of this movie are basically establishing him getting his new uniform, as it were, his work shirt and khaki pants. Interesting combination. He gets them from a rather quirky couple, played well by one and not so well by the other one. They're basically general store proprietors. One of the things I found kind of funny about them, but him in particular, the guy, he's obviously a pet lover, right? And his wife just runs him ragged, you know. She's definitely has the pants on in that family, but he eats and drinks. Looks like he gets a lot of sustenance from the shelves, but what he does, which is kind of humorous and disgusting in a way, is he eats like things that he can still keep selling. Like here, he grabs up a handful of peanuts. And he puts it back on the shelf, you know, back in those carefree days before everything was sealed, you know, vacuum sealed. And then he has to slake his thirst, so he goes right on down to the Sunny D, takes a big swig of that, and sticks it back on the shelf. It's like, oh boy. Oh, it's kind of funny. But yeah, this is a kind of strange, maybe overly long scene here. And he has like the weirdest bathroom in the world. This movie has a few different bathroom scenes, which is kind of disturbing in its own way, I guess. But, you know, this thus also begins the body count, you know. You're totally innocent locals that Jason just wanted their shirt and pants, I guess. So, but there's some interesting stuff to add. His death is pretty awful looking and pretty stilted. Now, her death, his wife's death, or what, I guess I never really said, I guess she's his wife, yeah. It's actually kind of cool. I mean, if you think about, well, in the realm of fiction, of course, but I mean, it's an interesting one. And yeah, the whole knitting needle that was so alluded to just a few minutes prior. Oh, it's missing. Oh, you know what's going to happen with it somehow. But it wasn't what I expected. But it was pretty cool. I liked it a lot, actually. That was an inventive one. So after that, we start meeting our group of, you know, slasher fodder here, basically teens. This one's a little bit different. It's not counselors. This is like an adjacent farm. There's a lot of adjacent. See, last one was an adjacent camp, and now this one's an adjacent working farm. That's apparently not used but once every couple of years. So we kind of meet the main gaggle of our adjacent bubblegum here. So we have, we'll just go over the main ones. Of the teenagers, as it were, the only ones that you really get a whole lot of time with are, or not so much a whole lot of time with, but you get more character traits from, are Dana Kimmel as Chris, and Larry Zerner as Shelley, and Catherine Parks as Vera. Dana Kimmel being our final girl for this movie, and Shelley, who is once again played by Larry Zerner, he's our hopeless nerd case, you know. For those in the comic book community, they can kind of feel his pain before comics were cool, you know. But, you know, he's a slightly pudgy, got a great big fro, white guy fro, and he has this really annoying habit of jump scaring people. And I guess he's a Tom Savini wannabe and makeup artist in training. You know, he says he's a thespian, but basically he likes to scare people. So it makes him even more socially awkward than he already is. Vera is the blind date that is set up for the weekend for him. Apparently her friends didn't like her too much, so yeah, they gave her Shelley. But funny story aside about Shelley, Larry Zerner, apparently he wasn't really cast. He was found, like he was handing out flyers or something on one of the main strips down there, and apparently something about the casting director or the director just, I don't know, made the way he was handing things out, or maybe his affable attitude, whatever, they cast him for the movie. So he has no, as far as I know, he has no previous acting experience before this movie. So just kind of a funny story. He actually avails himself pretty well for someone who really didn't have any of the training. So this whole introductory scene is kind of interesting. It shows Vera is a bit antagonistic to her mother. You know, she's definitely strong-willed, and she's not thrilled about Shelley, to say the least. But who can blame her the way he introduces himself? So this actually kind of segues into meeting two more of the characters. And I don't know what age they're supposed to be. It's indeterminate, but they're obviously much older than the rest of the teens here. And kind of the funniest scene in the movie, if you ask me.
Hey, the van's on fire!
And what, pray tell, could be happening to the poor van? And this also leads to another kind of funny scene where they are in imminent danger of running afoul of local law enforcement, or so they think.
See it. Hurry.
You gotta get rid of it. Eat it. Come on. The cops are gonna get us. We're going to jail.
I'm driving.
No way. We're pregnant, remember? Faster.
Now, this movie is not above giving cheap jump scares, or actually they're pretty lame ones in this one. Not as bad as the cat getting thrown through the window in the second one, but they're all pretty bad. A lot of false starts and takes. Heck, I know when Shelley is first introduced in the movie, they gave him the no, like he's chasing or something, coming up in the middle of the day through the city street or whatever. But there's a lot of crap like that, which is pretty lame. But there's some scenes where you got suspense and disbelief, where characters are just out of frame and supposedly can't be seen. Kind of like this little beauty of a scene right here.
Chris.
It's my bag. I'll take care of it.
Shelley, what are you doing in there?
But hey, I mean, if you can't be killing within the first 5-6 minutes, I guess you gotta at least try to be scaring them. It is a horror movie, right? So keeps people in popcorn and sodas. So you know, we got the characters established. They're only there a few minutes, and they have to run into town for snacks and provisions. So once they do, they run afoul of the world's smallest biker gang. It's, what is it, Ollie, Loco, and Fox, I believe it is. The only one really noticeable about them is Ollie, Nick Savage. He's the only one that's actually believable of all of them. I mean, he's still kind of a caricature a little bit, but he kind of exudes a biker vibe. The other guy, this Loco guy, he's like 98 pounds and it's just totally hammed. It's like beyond William Shatner ham. He's so much in the thing. And Fox, she does have a mean streak though. Like at the very beginning when she first runs afoul of Vera, it's kind of an interesting, funny little scene. Yeah, she's a nasty one, but she has a carefree side. But it's a strange diversion. There's the bikers. I don't know. It seems like a more excuse to up the body count, but you know, more on them later. So we go back to the camp after there's this altercation with the bikers. A pretty good one, actually. Well, a pretty serious one, should I say. And here we run afoul of maybe the most egregious of all of the 3D tricks. This movie plays lots of tricks with the audience. It's not really tricks that are obvious tricks. Like I said earlier about, you know, holding things in front of the camera to jump out for the 3D effect. This movie is rife with them, between baseball bats and flinging wallets and just... And even the passing of a joint is done in a 3D kind of fashion. They just pull out all the stops. And I will say this, I would love to have seen this movie in the original 3D. And my buddy has a 3D TV down in Florida, so maybe I'll go check it out, bring it with me down there and watch it. Because I really would like to see it in the original 3D. But I mean, this scene right here.
See if we go get some exercise.
This is all the exercise I need.
That was close.
I mean, it's so bad, but they just keep doing it, and you know, like, I don't know, yo-yo. Who'd have thought yo-yo makes such an interesting apparatus? But there's some other scenes in the movie too where they utilize this. They found out a couple of the actors could juggle, so they had them juggling. for some more 3D effects. A lot of the kills in this movie will utilize a 3D thing, like the handle of a pitchfork or something kind of sticking out at the screen, or machete kind of going forward, you know, and more famous ones later. The bikers somehow find where these people live. I don't know how. Aren't their bikes wrecked? How did they even get there? It's not really said. Maybe they walked, they tracked them. I don't know. However it is, they found the farm, and then they are going to burn the barn down. Okay, you know, they take it serious, right? But then they all run afoul of our main protagonist here, Mr. Jason Voorhees, and it does not end well for them. I will say the barn is like the bell tolls doom. Every time anyone goes in this barn, it's just not good for the most part. So they're taken out in fairly quick fashion, and there's some interesting things to be had here in some of the first more visible kills. It also kind of cements Jason as a little more of a stalkerish and patient assassin, if you will, in scenes like this. And I like how he comes out the door there. You know, he looks really stiff. But I'll talk a little more on that later. By the way, Jason's played by Richard Brooker in this movie. So different Jason than the last movie. It's basically a theme all the way up to, I think, part 7, when King of Horrors started his run. Actually, did he start in 6? Now I think about it, I think he might have started in 6, and then worked up through 9. But no, he went all the way through 10, excuse me. So he was Jason a lot, but until then, I think every other movie, or every movie, was a different Jason. So, you know, anyway, he takes out the bikers, except for Ali, and kind of a strange coincidence, even though it's not alluded to at first. I mean, we take it after that beating he took on the ground that he's dead, but he just never count Ali down. Something else I like about that biker death scene is it shows Jason as really mobile in a way. For instance, here, he actually jumps down from the top story. And that's something you never see him do pretty much before or after this movie. So, of course, all this goes unnoticed completely by the cast of characters. Oh, I forgot to mention Rick. That's the romantic interest of Chris. He's played by Paul Kratka. It's a weird thing with him. Like, I mean, he's not well played. But, I mean, at the very beginning, it shows him as a manly man. He's pulling hay up into the hayloft, and he's using the power of his mighty arms, and he's pulling. Then he pulls her up, and he's like, "Ah, I got this." And then when there's trouble afoot, and he runs to the rescue, he puts his flannel shirt on. He's like, you know, he's like the brawny man, you know. I keep expecting him to kind of crash out and start handing people paper towels and such.
So what I think we should do is set aside 3 hours a day to fulfill our needs. 1 in the morning and 2 at night.
But and then they move on to this scene where they're on Lover's Lane or wherever it is. And of course, the idiot leaves his lights on and kills the battery. Well, we had to make it more tense, right? One less operating vehicle. And they put him in like this cardigan sweater.
You know, I don't think I could live anywhere else. The nights are always so peaceful and quiet here.
It's deceiving.
His hair is all perfectly combed and all. I'm like, where did this come from? It's just weird, man. It robs him of all machismo, if it will, you know, for those of you who like Razor Ramon. So while they're out there, you know, reminiscing about old times, and he's trying to get back with her, and she's very wishy-washy about it. She goes into this kind of really long story about how she doesn't know it's Jason, but apparently she met Jason somehow in the woods, or maybe she dreamed it, I don't know, a couple years ago, and somehow got away from him, even though she passed out while he was dragging her around. They use a really annoying effect here where she's like superimposed over the scene, so you see her head in giant form when you really should be seeing more of the dream action or recollection action, whatever this is. But so it's kind of a really bad scene, and it really, especially at the end here, it really highlights her, let's say, dearth of acting prowess.
standing there was this hideous-looking man. He was so grotesque. He was almost inhuman.
So at this point, Jason, he's tired of killing bikers, so he's ready to move on to the main meat, the teenagers, right? So it's time to really start the body count going. So even though it happens off screen, Shelley does provide Jason with probably the most iconic outfit accessory of any horror icon. You know, we're talking right up there with Freddy's glove and fedora and Michael Myers' mechanics overalls and butcher knife, right? So we get the hockey mask. He also conveniently had a spear gun. Now it's weird, I didn't see him load any of this stuff. Shelley said everything in the beginning was in his whole life, all this stuff in cosmetics or whatever was in his box about this size. Yet he had a spear gun and a wetsuit in there for some reason, and a hockey mask. Don't ask me. It's just, hey, I don't make these movies, I just bring them to you. So it does provide Jason with not only a new replacement for the white sack from the number 2, it also provides him with the means to off the lovely Vera.
Hey, now cut that out right now. That's not funny.
So once again, 3D incorporated into one of the more famous kills, actually, at least of this movie, if not overall series. I'll say this too, at the end of the scene, there's one good thing and one bad thing. One good thing is I like how Jason just kind of tosses the friggin' weapon aside as soon as he's done with it. It's like it's done its purpose, you know, and then he just moves on to the next. And directly from there, it once again shows the stiffness of the portrayal of the character. He's walking like Lurch. He's walking like, I could almost understand his arm hanging like it was if it was the other side. Because, you know, he was kind of injured on that side. Well, kind of injured. He had a machete through his freaking shoulder. So maybe that one will be a little stiffer, just hanging useless. But it's the right arm. So, I don't know. But it does linger. You know, I'll say something else about this movie that takes, it's pretty good. The camera does linger on Jason quite a bit in this movie. Probably more than any other one. So that's kind of cool, because you don't really get to see him too often. And it doesn't ruin anything. He's probably on screen less than 2 minutes, 3 minutes total in this movie. But yeah, it does. The camera does sit on him a little bit. So, so Vera's a gun, and basically he's going to start mowing through people now. I mean, he's the chill is worn off. One of his next victims is Andy, and Andy receives what is possibly the most iconic kill in the entire series. If not, it's in the top 5, possibly top 3. This one was heavily censored by the MPAA. Well, just take a look and you can probably guess why.
Yeah? Are you still out there? I can't hear you.
But yeah, they really had to they really had to cut that one back. No, or pun definitely intended. But basically, he was divided among himself. So from there, his poor girl goes too, and yeah, it's not good for her either. Her death really harkens back to deaths in the first and second one. Basically, Kevin Bacon's death. And who was the second one? I can't remember who died in the second one with a knife coming up through. It doesn't really matter. These names aren't too important, but so far they're looking pretty good, but you can see them. But more on that later. But just when you think this movie's done with the 3D effects, you were wrong. So getting back to two of my favorite characters in the entire movie, the Cheech and Chong couple. Only one's female and one's male. We're talking about none other than Chuck and Chili. Chuck played by David Cattins, and Chili played by Rachel Howard. These two are really hilarious. I mean, I like all the scenes they're in. They seem kind of naturally just kind of digging each other, and they're always so stoned. just funny, man. I mean, pop references get old real fast, but they do it all right in this movie. They're a likable couple. But, you know, likable or not, they're not safe from Jason. Nor are they safe for being used as another 3D prop, as seen here in a really blatant one. So Chili's death was heavily edited as well. Apparently there was a blood splash effect with some smoking blood, which has been kind of interesting, and you saw a little more of the poker going through. But I mean, you know, I'm not a gore fiend, so I really don't care about that all that too much. It does make for a little bit of jerky editing at times, you know, from real violent transitions. Well, it is violent business, but so I mean that part is right. But anyway, at this point, all the fodder is pretty much gone. So now we have the last two are basically remaining, Rick and Chris. So they come back, and of course they split up again.
Everything all right?
So that's leads into another 3D effect slash semi-iconic kill for Jason, where poor Rick gets his vision checked, so to speak. So from here on out, Chris is on her own. So how does the final girl do? Well, she does really well. And this is the part of the movie where Jason always seems to lose his mojo. Before the final girl, Jason is he's like a psychokinetic. He can see the future. He's a one-shot kill. Basically, he just breezes through everybody, but he gets to the final girl and he loses all of his wits, and he loses all of his finesse, and he loses all of his stalking prowess. So we go through a lot of scenes of him chasing her down, and then her fighting back pretty ably. She's scared to death, but, you know, she bails herself well. And also what's interesting is in these, Jason shows that he still feels pain, and not only that, he also shows moments of self-preservation, which I'll get into in a bit. But yeah, so she kind of lames him up a little bit. And they're fighting all over the place. They fight in the house, they fight outside, they fight in the van. Now the van gets stuck, of course, like every horror movie, right? Can't get away in the van, it's too easy. She almost makes it out, but we found out, remember earlier when the bikers came and siphoned the gas out of the van, that it only goes like, you know, a few hundred yards down the road and then it dies. She finally remembers to use the reserve tank, which is pretty cool, and it had those in those trucks back then, or those vans. And then the bridge that she's sitting on, the planes collapse, so it just doesn't do well. But it does lead her to use her wits to survive Jason once again. It also allowed us to see Jason's self-preservation, leading you to think he's not really dead yet in this, as here he obviously shows a little concern for his life. But it's cool. Jason's hobbled up. He's kind of limping along, which is, it kind of comes and goes a little bit, to be honest with you. But I mean, they try to keep it somewhat consistent there. Jason's just trying to run her down, so back she goes to the Barn of Doom, and this is where the final bits happen. It's kind of interesting here. It shows Jason is angry, frustrated. He does a little wrecking of the barn, looking for her. But once again, it shows he like loses 60 IQ points by the end of the movie. It's just so strange, you know. Like I said, he's stealthy and a killer through all of it, and then he just, I don't know, he just goes ham at the end and loses all of it. So basically, there's a lot of back and forth between them. She does a lot of damage to the guy. But it's up to a character to kind of save the day, or at least give the opportunity for the final girl to finish him. And this kind of really odd scene here, it's like, it just doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Okay, we'll suspend disbelief and say he was just knocked out for a little while, and Jason meant to kill him but didn't. Maybe thought he was dead. I don't know. But this allows the killing blow to be landed, and actually, once again, shows the kind of stiff movements of the actor when he's kind of with the axe in his head. You know, the machete's pointing at the camera, the axe is coming out at you. It's like, okay, there's 3D, but whatever. And, you know, finally collapses, and is it over? I don't know, it's over. Well, once again, the character goes out to a canoe for some damn reason, and rather than walking into town, wakes up in the morning by a duck on a string, and everything else seems to be attacking her. Wood, ducks. I don't know, but, we are once again treated to a hallucination scene. It must be, because she sees Jason up in the window and coming out the house. Bloodied up, but with no mask, which is kind of a cool scene because it's shot from real far away. So I kind of like that part of it, and she's trying to get away, and then she realizes she's hallucinating. And then who would pop up through the water and a complete ripoff of the first movie, but reversed? That's right, Pamela Voorhees. She has a head again. But it must be a dream, right? But anyway, we're treated to a scene now where it appears that poor Chris is traumatized beyond belief, has been turned to a gibbering loon. And so, poor Jason, just wrecking fools even when he's dead. So, looks like he's dead. He's still laying on the ground in the morning, so. Is this the end of the series? Who's to know? Our last shot is of a tranquil lake, but some bubbles come up. Are the bubbles Pamela? Or is it a portent of things to come? Anyway, that cuts down to the funk music track again. And that was Friday the 13th Part 3. In a nutshell, let's go over some quick pros and cons. Some pros, once again, I really like Steve Miner's direction and cinematography choices in this movie. There's some really good shots, man. I'm telling you though, this guy is really good at dynamic camera work and direction. Say what you want about scripts and overall premise of the movie, but he puts together a solid visual presentation. The actual characters themselves, there's a lot more interaction in this movie than in the first two of the tertiary characters. While, you know, Chris is the main focus, well, technically Chris and I guess Shelley and Vera, those three get the most kind of character development. But really, all of them interact like a lot more than they do in the first two. So you kind of get to know these a little bit better, and you kind of, it makes it a little more invested in the characters themselves. So that part's really good too. I like that. They fleshed them out much better. And there's some decent acting to be had here. We're not talking about anything too special. Richard Brooker does a decent job as Jason. I just don't like the stiffness they puts into it. But the rest of it, he conveys a pretty decent menace. Shelley is a pitiable character. In a way, he is rather annoying. But, you know, he's like that little kid brother that always pesters you. But you still gotta love him anyway, right?
What are you doing in there? Why aren't you down at the lake with everybody else?
Oh, they said they were going skinny dipping, and I'm not skinny enough.
Vera is... Some people will probably tend not to like her, but I don't have too much of a problem with her. She's a little bit mean, but at the same time, you know, she doesn't have to like Shelley. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least she was honest with the guy for the most part. You know, it's like, I'm not interested. Instead of just keep leading him on, you know. Even though she was kind of nice to him after he fended off the bikers. So maybe he got some mixed signals there, but...
I like you. I like you a lot. I was thinking that maybe, you know, we could...
I don't think so.
So she was fairly well played. She seemed strong, and she had a little tender moment at the end right there before she bit it. But the set design was decent, but nothing too special. I like the barn. The barn was kind of cool. It gave a lot of hiding places, a lot of implements of destruction, and I'm sure the 3D effects were awesome in the day. I mean... like I said, it doesn't look good now. You're not watching it in 3D, and it looks hokey. But I'm sure it was good back in the 80s. You know, can't take that away from it at all. So, some of the deaths are fairly inventive. But so it's not like a gore fest or anything. So, I still think the first one is probably gorier than basically any of the ones that followed it. I think part 4 might have had quite a bit of it, but we'll get to that one later. The movie just flows all right. There's a few more dead spots in this movie than there is in like part 2. Basically, her whole storytelling, they had to go shoehorning that in there. So she's basically coming back to Camp Chris's to fight her fears or something. I don't know, some nonsense like that. Very cathartic, I guess. But so there's some good things to be had here. Some bad things because of the 3D filming. If you're watching it outside of 3D, it looks kind of grainy. A lot of the film looks grainy, real grainy, in fact, especially the daytime scenes, and really fairly washed out. But I don't think there's anything they could have done about that. This was planned to be a 3D movie from the start, so they left it that way, and so you can't really blame them. There's some pretty bad acting in this, but you know that's every horror movie, like especially slasher movies. I mean, we're not talking Citizen Kane here, right?
I blacked out. I don't know what happened after that. I just don't know.
It was serviceable. There's my wording. I like serviceable, but I'd say as far as like Friday the 13th or slasher films in general, the acting was probably a little above average. But I mean, it's not horrible. I mean, other than maybe Rick, I can't think of too many other ones that. Well, 2 of the bikers I was happy to see go to, but I mean the rest of them were decent. Andy was kind of a wooden jackass, but everyone else is pretty good. Bad else, the sound's okay. Once again, the strings are a little bit loud, but not annoyingly so like the first one, so not too bad there. I already mentioned Jason's kind of stilted performance, or characterization in this one. It just seemed funny. He can run and jump in this one, and sometimes he's super agile, super ninja-like, and sometimes he walks like, I don't know, like he's drunk or something. It's very odd. Or like his back is really hurting him or something. I don't know. So Jason's okay, but nothing spectacular in this. So I would say that the good outweighs the bad in this movie, and on the Friday the 13th 1 through 5 scale, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 3. It's middle of the road. It's one of the earlier ones, so it's still, well, I have to suspend some disbelief. It's not as as overboard as it gets to be in some of the later series when he's basically an undead super killer. So it's nice seeing him vulnerable still. Overall, great way to spend 90 minutes of your time, I'd say. If you have a way to watch it in 3D, it's got to be the way to go. I would, like I said, I would love to watch it. I'd watch it again right now if I could watch it in 3D. So this is one I would probably revisit in the future. So I said I won't incredibly highly recommend it, but it's very good. Not great, but just very good as far as slasher movies go, in my humble opinion. But anyway, that's gone on long enough, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. So once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for reviews of part 4 coming up here shortly, probably within the next week or so. And then right on the way, all the way through 10, or maybe all the way through Freddy vs. Jason. We'll see. So anyway, thanks again for watching. And until next time, this is Genome, 3 Movies Deep.